Your words are powerful. Now, when you open your mouth and words come out, you may not feel like you're doing anything particularly special. But James chapter 3 tells us that our words have the potential to guide our lives. That because of the things that come out of our mouths, they might lead us to follow God and to do good, or they might lead us into a world of destruction. They could lead us on a path that leads us far away from God. So James teaches us we need to watch our words. And so in chapter 2, he's been talking about how we should have a faith that acts on us, that transforms our lives. Our faith shouldn't just leave us the same way we were, but something should change about our lives. And this is a particular aspect of what ought to change, is the words that come out of our mouths. The things that we say ought to reflect the fact that we have faith in Jesus. So here we come to the beginning of chapter 3, and I'm not going to read verse 1, but verse 1 kind of transitions us into this idea of using our words, because it talks about teachers, and teachers use a lot of words, and so they have to be extra cautious. And then it takes us to verse 2. It says, "For we all stumble in many ways." Pause there. That's a little short sentence, but there's so much important truth in it. First of all, look, it says we. James, this guy who's a leader in the church, who's supposed to be someone who people look to as an example, he identifies with this. He's not saying, y'all struggle with your mouth and you need to watch it. He's saying, no, this is something for all of us. Even the most mature of Christians have to watch their tongue. For we all, everyone, without exception, whether it's you, other students around you, your parents, your pastors, the heroes in your life, all have to watch out for what they say and watch out for what they do, because, why? We all stumble. We all stumble. We all sin. Remember in Romans it tells us that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. This is us stumbling. We're sinning and we're falling short of the glory of God. And not only in one or two ways. It's not like we just got one thing wrong with us. He says in many ways. We all stumble in many ways. It's like spiritual whack-a-mole where you hit one and you're like, yes, I got it taken care of. And then three more pop up over here. We're constantly fighting against sin in many different ways. Stumbling and falling and struggling. This is the story of our lives, as a constant struggle. In a particular way that shows up is the way we use our words. It's the words that come out of our mouths. So keep reading. It says, "And if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he's a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body." So this is saying, y'all, it's really important to watch out what comes out of your mouth, because if you can take care of that, you can take care of everything else. Like if you don't struggle with your mouth, you're perfect. And spoiler alert, you're not perfect. We're all struggling with what comes out of our mouths. But if you can control that, you can control everything else. It's really important. So he gives a couple of illustrations here. He says if we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they're large and are driven by strong winds, they're guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So a bit in the mouth of a horse and a rudder for a ship are these relatively small things that guide these massive, powerful. Think about how powerful a horse is or how large a ship is. And these little bitty things have the power to guide those. Our tongues are the same way. He says in verse 5, "So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things." Even though the tongue seems like a small thing, even though the words that come out of our mouths may seem insignificant, they have the power to guide our lives. Now, for one thing, this is really dangerous, because we're going to see in the next few parts of this chapter, it really talks about the danger of the tongue. But I also want to point out the power of the tongue doesn't always have to be a bad thing. God has given us words and has given us the ability to speak as a powerful instrument for the glory of God. Instead of using our tongue to tear people down, instead of using our tongue to lead us into a world of unrighteousness, we need to use our tongue to proclaim the glory of God, to take the good news to people who haven't heard it, to uplift people, to encourage people, to build one another up. Let's use this powerful instrument that can guide our lives and guide other people's lives. Let's use it for the glory of God.